Hi, welcome to BBB. Today we're going to have a little look at recording the acoustic guitar, but more specifically, recording yourself playing the acoustic guitar when there's no one else in the studio to help you out, which is something I have to do a lot of. So the first thing really to consider is what position you're going to take to play the guitar. And what I mean by position is how you're going to play the guitar and reach all the controls on your DAW and the preamp gain and everything you might need. So I've found a nice position sitting here. If I rotate myself round, I've got perfect access to the mouse, to my DAW keyboard. I can see the screens nice and clearly. I'm within easy reach of my preamp. And I've got my trusty Octava MK012 microphone mounted in this rather nifty little stand that shields the microphone from the rest of the room. Now from this position, whilst it's not ideal, I can freely play the guitar unhindered and hit the play and record and do a little bit of editing on the fly. I think finding a good position to work from is even more important than getting a great guitar sound. I'm not saying you should try and get a bad guitar sound, but if you get a really great performance, but it's all distorted because you couldn't reach the preamp gain, or you get a great performance but you couldn't reach record, then it's all for nothing. So I've managed to find a good compromise position here. Now on a more general note, there's a few things to bear in mind when recording the acoustic guitar. The biggest influencing factors are going to be, obviously, the guitar and you. So make sure you're really up to speed on the part you're going to play. Make sure your guitar's in good nick, and the better the guitar, the better the recording's going to be. I find a new set of strings is a bit harsh, so give them a few days to bed in before you start. I've also, quite surprisingly, found that the choice of plectrum makes an enormous difference to the sound of the guitar. Now the other important thing that you mustn't overlook is a tuner, and I've got a nifty little Korg clip-on tuner that sits on the end of my acoustic guitar the whole time. Now this isn't an electro-acoustic guitar, so I don't plug this in and DI it. I've never really liked the DI of a guitar, although occasionally it does come in handy. But I've always preferred a directly mic'd up acoustic guitar, plain and simple. I've always preferred an Omni microphone to a cardioid microphone when recording acoustic guitar. I found cardioids seem to give you a less balanced sound and are much more sensitive to you swaying about when you're playing. So bear that in mind whether you're recording yourself or someone else. If they're a big mover, an Omni will always do you more good. The thing to remember with an Omni microphone is it does pick up from all round, hence my little shield here, which is going to blot out most of the room. And I'm going to stay quite close to the mic, which again helps reduce some of the room noise. Now a cardioid mic, when you get up very close, gives you a proximity effect, which normally results in a very bass heavy sound. An Omni doesn't do the same, so I can get quite close to this Omni and get a sound that doesn't have too much room in it, even though it really is picking up from all around. Now one of the problems I have when mixing other people's recordings is there's often a lot of computer noise in the background if they're recording in a similar way to me. So I've been sure to place myself between the microphone and my computer, which is tucked down in the corner there. That's an important thing to remember. Especially laptops can get pretty noisy with fans and things clicking away in the background. So I think the important things to consider when recording yourself are getting a nice clean recording so your preamp isn't overloading. Those transients can get pretty spiky. Getting a great performance is obviously the priority, and you need to be tightly in with the groove of the song and playing in an appropriate style, perhaps more softly or more loudly, depending on whether you're taking a background role or the acoustic guitar's a main feature. It's also important when you're recording yourself to learn a few self-recording tricks. So if you're recording one section of the song at a time, for instance, you might want to make sure that you play over the bar line into the next section, even if you're not too sure what it is. This will give you a cleaner edit later. It's also important to let notes ring out for longer than you think they need to at the end. That way when you're making an edit later on, you can make the decision then when you're under less pressure. One of the biggest factors when recording yourself, or in fact anyone on the acoustic guitar, is getting a consistent position with the microphone. Recording an acoustic guitar, perhaps more than many other instruments, you get a very specific sound depending on the minutiae of the position between you and the microphone. So if you play and record, say, a chorus, and then go for a cup of tea and come back, and you're in a fractionally different position, you can get a significantly different sound which will prove difficult to edit later and a nightmare when it comes to mixing. So you might want to stick some bits of tape on the floor to measure where your toes are. You might even want to take a photograph of the position you're in. You can't really take too much care over this. You'll really be glad of it, especially if you revisit the guitar and want to replace a chorus another day. You'll be able to refer back to your photographs or your footmarks and resume the exact position that you had last time. That way you should get an identical sound that will edit well. That's providing you can match the type of performance you gave. Now, one of the things I often do is doubling up acoustic guitar, and there's many ways to approach this. The first is obviously just to play the same part on the same guitar through the same microphone twice. You would typically pan one left, one right, and maybe compress them as a pair. This gives you a lovely wide panorama. But for a more dramatic stereo effect, it can be a good idea to change guitars, change the kind of chord you play, for instance, change from an open D chord to a bar D. But also you might have a Nashville strung guitar, for instance, that can play the second part. A Nashville guitar is like a 12-string with all the thicker strings removed. So it plays like a normal 6-string, but gives you a more jangly sound. I'll show you. Let's do a quick take. This isn't related to the two songs we're doing. I prefer to do the acoustic guitar for those songs without the pressure of the camera on me. But I'll play a little section, first on my normal guitar, and then doubled up on the normal guitar, and then I'll compare that to how that doubles up on the Nashville. See you in a moment. Okay, so I've got the computer set to record. I've checked my record levels. They're slightly on the low side, which is deliberate. I want to make sure that those spiky transients don't go into the red at all. It can sound particularly nasty on an acoustic guitar if you get digital clipping. So, let's do a little take. So first, this is one guitar on its own. Okay, now I'm going to add a second guitar. It's the same guitar, it's all the same settings, and I'm going to play an identical part. So you can hear how they sounded together, which is really quite nice. Now I'm going to swap my acoustic guitar for the Nashville guitar I spoke of earlier to show you the difference. So as you can hear, there's quite a significant difference between the two types. The Nashville guitar, in conjunction with a normal 6-string, gives a really nice jangly 12-string effect. Yet because the two sets of strings are on two different guitars, it's something you can control a little bit easier and tends to sound a little bit smoother and a bit more controllable than a 12-string, which can be a bit overpowering in a mix. So I hope that's given you a little bit more confidence to record acoustic guitar on your own. If it makes you feel any better, it really is the instrument I had the most trouble getting a good sound out of. However, it's one of those things that the more you do it, the better you'll get, and you'll find whatever works for you. But just remember, don't try and bluff your way through the song. It's never going to end up in good results. And as with any instrument, learning your performance and being able to do it naturally and without having to think too hard is always going to help you get a great recording. See you in the next video.